it was once said by Sadat that America holds 99% of the cards. I want to ask you about something that touches probably everyone in this room, which is the impact in strategic terms of the financial crisis here in the United States, here in New York, and its implications for America playing the sort of leadership role that I know you envision for the United States in global affairs.
Well, let me give you a contradictory answer to this, as I've thought about that in the last few weeks. On the one hand, I think we have overreached our capacities in the sort of leadership that we sometimes asserted for ourselves. We cannot simultaneously guarantee the security of the whole world and the domestic political structure of the whole world and engage ourselves actively in every country's domestic situation, as we sometimes implied in our rhetoric, not necessarily in our actions. So to adjust our purposes to our capabilities is not necessarily a bad thing. Other countries are now almost every place in the world analyzing a number of issues. One, those who invested in the United States faced the political problem of explaining how they risked so much and on the basis of what theory. Secondly, it will raise questions, and I'm particularly talking about countries like China, for the decision-making process of these countries. Did we make the right decision in betting on cooperation with the United States? Third, they will probably become more assertive in bilateral negotiations because they feel stronger and because they will have somewhat less confidence in our competence. But having said all of this, this will also force them into a more realistic assessment and not simply shove every problem to the United States. They will now be obliged to consider what their real contribution has to be to international issues. So while on the one hand, in the short term, the impact is unfortunate, it is also a way to bring some of these countries to a perception of reality, and the same should be true of us. We are still going to be, when all of this is over, the strongest country in the world. We will still have the strongest military establishment and the strongest economy. We have made it a little bit too easy for ourselves in turning problems into technical issues in which we make state grandiloquent goals and assign contributions to other societies of how they should participate in it. So we will be forced now to think in more achievable goals. But the fundamental principles I talked about at the beginning of what needs to be done, the need to prevent proliferation doesn't become any less because it's now somewhat more, we find ourselves in a somewhat more difficult position. So I would think that with the right leadership here, we can actually turn this crisis into the beginning of a rebuilding of the international system that was in any event necessary and which has been obscured because we were divided in this country by too many extraneous considerations.
So if without putting words in your mouth, because I want you to utter them yourself, Are you the one optimist in New York?
I think, I know this is unfashionable. I think this is a great opportunity to look at the international system. You look at countries around the world. Where are they going to go? So the American vision of the global economic system was too out of whack with the political system. The internal restraints of the American system, and even the internal moral restraints of the American system in the economic world, were inadequate to the opportunities and possibilities that technology opened up to them. But having said all of this, the problems of this period nevertheless remain. And so in some of the European countries, there's been a total lack of realism of what the function of the state could be or should be and what their international role should be. I believe that China will be shocked. It will have a serious domestic debate, at the end of which they will conclude that they need cooperation with the United States, as we will conclude that we will need cooperation with China, and in a more modest, but therefore more attainable framework. Yes, I'm optimistic, provided we do what we need to do.
Ladies and gentlemen, this year Scholar-Statesman Award has been awarded to a single honoree who is both scholar and statesman. And I believe over the last 45 minutes, we've had an opportunity to draw on an amazing breadth of experience and knowledge and insight about history, politics, diplomacy, international relations. And to end an evening like this, in a town like this, on an optimistic note for America and America's role in the world, I think we can only do that by drawing on this wisdom. So please join me in thanking Dr. Henry Kissinger.